And let's not forget the NI national insurance raid on the private sector that Rachel Reeves herself pointed out would destroy business, schools making them even more elitist, our pensioners risking their health with which Labour's own report suggested that 4,000 would die. I mean, they don't know whether they're coming or going. We are on the brink of world war, and frankly, not answering questions isn't.
Remember when you believed in Keir Starmer's promises of a better future for Britain, when you had faith that Labour would finally bring the change we all hoped for? Now, with taxes on the rise and optimism fading, it's hard not to ask, were we deceived? In this piece, we dig into the story of how that trust was lost.
There were no answers. They don't ever answer a flaming question. But one thing is for sure, Rachel Reeves' disastrous anti-business budget is worse than anything.
Weeks ago, from that dispatch box, the Minister for Rural Affairs said that he'd been congratulated by a farmer over the introduction of the...
From the perspective of a determined journalist, you'll uncover how the story of a £22 billion deficit was constructed to play on public fears and justify policies that benefit a select few. But before we dive in, a quick request. If you find this content worthwhile, please like the video and subscribe. Now, imagine this. Rachel Reeves, Labour's Chancellor, stands at the dispatch box, her expression grave as she prepares to deliver news that will send shockwaves through Westminster and beyond.
Rachel Reeves is a disaster. And Keir Starmer's leadership is shambolic. The poor Liz Truss is often blamed for. In my view, Rachel Reeves must go. The other day, I went to PMQs, that's Prime Minister's Questions, and I can see why they call it that, because it was just...
With visible concern, she reveals a shocking £22 billion shortfall inherited from the Conservatives. A murmur spreads across Parliament, tension fills the room, but something feels off. Reeves presents a bleak image of Britain's finances, yet inconsistencies emerge. Economists begin to question the timing and legitimacy of the deficit, asking why this number has only now come to light, and why it surfaces just as Labour assumes power. The timing feels suspicious.
Just yesterday, we had 10,000 farmers on Whitehall protesting against this madcap decision.
I mean, they don't know whether they're coming or going. We are on the brink of world war, and frankly, not answering questions isn't good enough.
So does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that this decision should be thrown in the trash can along with Rachel?
This marks Reeves's first major budget announcement. Is the timing pure coincidence, or is something deeper going on? As details unfold, top economists begin dismantling the claim. They're not only questioning the numbers, they're challenging the foundation of Labour's economic approach. One analyst warns that the proposed employer national insurance hike could be devastating for small businesses already under pressure. The public response is sharp, and the markets react nervously to the growing uncertainty.
Of course, they didn't answer that question, so there's no point playing the non-answer. That was Lee Anderson asking Angela Rayner a question from the horse's mouth itself. They even evade questions that you would think it would be their job to answer. Now, the Labour government haven't got a clue how you or I read.
A more pressing question begins to emerge. Is this £22 billion figure a political tactic or a genuine emergency? Just as the dust settles from Labour's budget, a disturbing thought arises. What if this supposed black hole is a fabrication? That's when Sarah Thompson, a seasoned investigative journalist, gets a tip from an anonymous source. At first, she doubts it, but her instincts tell her something doesn't sit right about the deficit story.
Westminster bubble insulates them from the real world, and I suspect they thought that their stonking majority,
when our economic recovery is not yet established or secure, and only adds to the pressure on businesses,
enabled them to carte blanche do whatever they wanted without our consent, things many of which they did not mention in them.
As Sarah investigates, she hits roadblocks from officials at every step. Financial documents lack clarity, critical information is absent, and the overall picture is suspiciously opaque. Refusing to back down, she turns to tools of the trade, budget responsibility reports, treasury documents, and historical spending data. She matches official claims against independent studies, slowly revealing a tangled web. Soon, whispers start from within government circles. Insiders leak, troubling evidence of altered budget figures and manipulated projections.
Which is why I suspect Rachel Reeves thought that she could get away with foisting this anti-business budget.
the decision to saddle employers and workers with the jobs tax, takes money out of people's pockets.
Energy security with Ed Zero's Nut Zero, £22 billion energy policies, the same size as the supposed...
Then a small detail buried deep in a Treasury document sets off alarms, a data inconsistency that challenges the entire narrative. It turns out, the £22 billion figure is not a genuine crisis, but a manufactured story achieved through clever accounting and selective data use. Labour has exaggerated the fiscal situation dramatically. The real deficit, while real, is far less than the public was led to believe. As Sarah's findings break in the media, the political consequences begin to unfold. Starmer enters Parliament to a tense silence. Armed with the report, opposition MPs move in. Starmer sticks to scripted defenses about responsibility, but his avoidance only adds fuel to the growing outrage.
Energy policies which make us all poorer, with the con that is carbon capture.
Despite all of their election promises to cut national insurance contributions, they're actually raising them.
Schools making them even more elitist. Our pensioners risking their health with which Labour's own report suggested that 4,000.
The public doesn't want spin, they want answers. A Conservative MP speaks out, her tone cutting through the noise. As debates continue, it's evident that Starmer's defense of the £22 billion claim is falling apart. Repeated explanations about inherited challenges no longer hold weight. The more he talks, the less convincing he becomes. It's becoming clear. The purpose behind the inflated figure was to justify unpopular decisions, tax increases, and spending cuts. But now that the truth is out, that move is falling apart dramatically.
Why it is so worrying that at this crucial time, the Prime Minister and Chancellor concocted a new jobs tax.
And let's not forget the NI national insurance raid on the private sector that Rachel Reeves herself pointed out would destroy.
The political blowback is immediate and intense. Conservatives demand Starmer step down, while even some Labour allies pull away. Trade unions express serious concerns about the damage to workers, and progressive MPs start to question the direction of the party. Labour's unity is breaking down in real time. What began as a policy claim has turned into a serious crisis for the party's trustworthiness.
There was this 22 billion black hole. We spend 1,200 billion pounds every year. And this 22 billion so-called black hole is a mere accounting device. And this whole debate, what the Labour government are now trying to do, is to make the political point that the Conservative Party ran the country into the ground and therefore we got to punish the pension.
This scandal might reshape British politics for years, but the harshest blow is felt elsewhere among everyday people. While leaders argue, the real damage is being done to British businesses. Early reports show the private sector has dipped to its weakest point in more than a year, and that's just the beginning.
I want to stop you there. On that 22 billion, I want everybody watching this to know and understand that nearly half of that 22 billion, £9 billion, comes from decisions that your government has made to give many public sector workers pay rises above inflation, including junior doctors getting 22% of an increase over 2 years. So again, when it comes to winter fuel allowance, that was a choice. It was a political decision.
Job losses are looming. Small businesses, already under pressure, now face possible collapse. Local stores, care homes, and essential services running on tight budgets could be wiped out by the ripple effects. Economic analysts issue warnings. The core question grows louder. Was this all a massive mistake? Or are we now watching the early stages of a full-blown crisis? Some warn that Britain could be headed for a long period of stagnation, echoing economic disasters in other countries.
It looks like your tax bill will go up so we can pay for illegal immigrants and asylum seekers. Labour keep telling us about this financial black hole. Now it turns out that a large chunk of that is the bill for illegal immigrants, and that problem is set to get worse, not better. The Home Office has been massively overspending when it comes to illegal immigration. Over the last 3 years, the Home Office estimated it would cost the taxpayer £320 million to handle asylum, border control, visas and passport operations. It costs £7.9 billion. That's an overspend of £7.6 billion.
Investor faith is shrinking, growth is stalling, and if nothing changes soon, Britain may enter a damaging cycle. The government's reaction matters now more than ever, but public confidence has been shaken, and damage has already set in. If leaders fail to come clean about how these figures were shaped and restore accountability, Britain might face lasting consequences. The only way forward is through transparency. Without it, rebuilding trust will be impossible.